when Russian forces refused to take the order from the Kremlin to lay explosives around nuclear facilities, Wagner went in and did it. That's the sort of dirty work they do for Putin.
A UK-based law firm is taking on Russia's mercenary Wagner Group over claims it's committed acts of terrorism in Ukraine. Fighters have been accused of atrocities during the Russian invasion, as well as previously in Syria and Africa in general. The move has already triggered a bizarre response from the group's founder, Evgeny Prigozhin. Jason McCue is a senior partner at McCue Jury and Partners. He also happens to be Mr. Frostrup on his days off. And earlier we spoke about the case being put against the Wagner Group. Jason, welcome to the programme.
Thank you for having me.
I know that you've previously had the pleasure of talking with Matt Chorley, but today we're bringing it even closer into the Times family, as it were. But seriously, Wagner emerged in 2014, I think, in Ukraine, and are suspected by the West of doing the Kremlin's dirty work. Can you tell me a little bit more about what's known about the group?
They're a purposely shadowy outfit, and they're a private military mercenary arm of privateers. However, Putin's war machine and foreign policy use Wagner to do the dirty work around the world.
And you know, we say dirty work. What sort of things are the Wagner Group accused of?
If Russia wants gold or uranium out of an African country, it uses Wagner to go in to establish a new government regime there, and in return they get an offtake of the materials and sources they want. Wagner are used now for breaking sanctions during the war.
And what about their operations during the war in Syria?
In Syria there was plenty of war crimes accredited to them, and their behaviour there was considered to be crimes against humanity and is well documented by all the NGOs and on-the-ground resources.
So there have been reports, of course, that the Wagner Group mercenaries may have been involved in atrocities in the Ukrainian town of Bucha. Is there evidence to support that?
Yes, there's strong evidence. The evidence is so strong that they have been used with the forwarding groups that have been targeting civilians with the missile strikes, which is again a war crime. They have been involved in other war crimes, but perhaps the most outrageous thing they have done to date is when Russian forces refused to take the order from the Kremlin to lay explosives around nuclear facilities, Wagner went in and did it. That's the sort of dirty work they do for Putin.
They've also been accused of mass rape, using rape as a weapon of war. Is that something that there's evidence to support?
Yes, and there's plenty of evidence to support that rape has been used as a weapon of war, but that goes throughout the forces on the ground, the Russian forces. The thing about Wagner is Wagner have been used as a leadership role, as a training role, and to instill fear and terrorism throughout Ukraine. So they have been advocating this rape as a weapon of war.
So how close is the group's founder, Evgeny Prigozhin, to President Putin? How powerful a position does he occupy in Russia today?
Well, he's known as Putin's chef. They're very close friends and business allies. Any commentator will tell you he's on a position with Lavrov, the foreign, and with the military leadership. A very, very senior figure in Russia today, and indeed somebody who many commentators say is moving to be the next president.
You've taken this first step towards what's been described as groundbreaking legal action against the Wagner Group. What does it mean, and what are you hoping to achieve? Because I'm sure there will be people out there. Indeed, we had Sir Lord Richard Dannett on the programme yesterday, who sort of said the time will come for actions on behalf of victims, but perhaps now isn't the time. Why is it the time now?
It's the time for plenty of reasons. So yesterday I was part of a parliamentary inquiry into Wagner Group and other illegal private military companies. And one of the things is that Parliament understands it's going to be some time before it can put in measures to protect us and the world and other victims against the likes of Wagner. This action happens now. We're targeting 5 billion of their assets, and we're confident we'll take them. That will have a disruptive effect on them, and if that saves Wagner from killing, murdering and raping one more person in Ukraine, then that's worth it.
But how do you actually get a hold of this 5 billion of their assets? I mean, they're certainly not going to be offering it up to you on a plate, are they?
No, we do what we win the case, we get a judgment, and we go around the world and enforce it, and we freeze their assets, which we have people like Bellingcat, the wonderful Bellingcat, who have been supporting this action and tracing assets for us, along with a whole array of investigators and intelligence experts. We're confident.
And what response has there been to your move, to your action? I mean, in particular, I suppose, from Evgeny Prigozhin and the Wagner Group.
Last night I was contacted by a major Russian media outlet who had run a story quoting Prigozhin, whose response to the rule of law, this case, was to mock Ukrainians and the victims and the world, saying we'd never get the crowdfunding to bring this justice. And he even offered to pay us. We will not take his blood money.
But he did make, I mean, he obviously, in a way, seemed to mock the case, offering to pay for it, saying that you didn't have the money to pursue him. Is that the case? How are you funding the case?
Well, at the moment, we've put it on our shoulders, and we have launched a crowdfunding on Crowd Justice. If ever anyone can get involved and pledge whatever they can to help us. We'll raise the money. I'm sure the world's public will realise that a monster like Prigozhin, who made in his press release against us comments so derogatory of women, which was just gratuitous, to outline what a monster he is.
Well, yes, I was going to say, as part of that response, he referred to a member of his organisation who's been accused of dismembering women, and he said, no. He said women are for, just think the F word, not for dismembering. Are you surprised that someone like that, running an organisation like Wagner, has not yet been declared a terrorist and his organisation a terrorist group?
I'm shocked, but this is often the case. There's sometimes when governments and intergovernment agencies are slow to react, and that is when civil society must come forward and fill that gap, and it's called civil society lawfare, and that's what we're trying to do.
So, just finally, how is this legal move now likely to play out in practice? And are you checking for poison in your food? Because the Russians do have a habit of retaliating.
Well, I'm one of 100 lawyers involved in this, so that's a lot of poisoning he's going to have to do, because this case will go on now. There's lawyers all over the world doing it and bringing other actions around the world to follow on from this one. No, we will go through the court process, and we will use the rule of law and British justice to advance this. Meanwhile, Prigozhin will try and litigate this in the media like he did, and no doubt carry on committing war crimes in Ukraine until we start causing damage and the world starts punishing him.
Do you think an action like this can affect the course of the war?
I think an action like this is lawfare. And this has a role to play in war because it can bring issues to the forefront, and it can make the public and it can make the governments and the politicians bring sanctions and designate people like Wagner and Putin.
Jason McCue of McCue Jury and Partners, Mr. Frostrup, thank you very much indeed for talking to me today.